Remember a couple of weeks ago, I called and I told you that I had four dreams. I woke up and there were four dreams instantly on my mind. I figured I'd call and give you a second one of those.
Okay.
Remember the last one was with Jesus
on the cross, Jesus on the cross?
On the cross. Yep.
Okay.
Photograph, and they were cutting off history. This one is, again, they're all short. So one big serpent was lying on a table. Near its head was a lady holding a silver box, and she was carefully opening it and coaxing a smaller serpent to come out and slowly slither up to the bigger serpent so as to introduce it without disturbing it. All the while, there was some more powerful entity overwatching, though I wasn't sure if it was good or evil. Then there was something sinister about the lady and the two serpents. Naturally, you would think. That's it.
That's a cool dream. I like that dream. That's I'll take this one.
All right.
A lot of times I like to give Neil first shot, but this one's a fun one.
Okay.
The idea of a big snake represents an old lie, an age-old lie, something.
Oh, a lie. Okay.
A lie. So this was a big, long serpent that was laying on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that represents a lie of the ages. You think of communism, the lie that people can live and survive in happiness and freedom and liberty by living off the government and not working, or all getting paid equally the same. These are lies that have been around for generations. They've been around for hundreds of years in different forms in multiple countries all over the planet. There's the lie that you're not a person is not enough. Again, classic lies that the enemy throws at people. Another one would be, did God really say? That's the first three. It's the first, whatever, 4 words that the serpent said to a human being. He said it to Eve. Did God really say? It's really interesting because I addressed this in some of the teaching that I was doing today. This is what happens when people teach falsehoods that are not scripturally based, like the idea that dreams can come from the devil, or dreams can come from a demonic source, or dreams are from a tasty bit of cheese or pizza. They quote Scrooge instead of scripture. And when you examine fully and thoroughly all the dreams of the Bible and all the verses on dreams, there's absolutely nothing that even hints to the idea that dreams come from any other source than God. In fact, God takes ownership and says, I speak to them in dreams. Right? And so what it does is it creates the doubt in people's mind, because this unfortunately, this kind of misinformation is pervasive in a lot of prophetic communities. And so there's a lot of people that say things like, well, I had a prophetic dream, or I had a dream that I knew was from God. You want to know if a dream's from God? I'll tell you how to know if a dream's from God. You had a dream. Exactly. So it's the idea, did God really say? It's the same classic lie. And I can't believe people don't see this, because if they have a dream that makes them upset and it's a warning dream, like people don't like snakes. People have a dream like your dream, and they're like, oh, they just rebuke it. I rebuke the demon of whatever was on the table and the tiny little one in the box. And they don't take the time to get the insight. And so what they're doing is they're actually buying into the classic age-old lie of, did God really say? Is this dream really from God? You can have full confidence that a dream is really from God. If you don't have that confidence, then take the SIM course, do the Dream Through the Bible Study series, study extensively. And again, when God first told me, I didn't agree with it either. And I spent about 2 years of my life doing nothing but interpreting nightmares, trying to find the one gotcha dream that I could go back to God and say, see, this is so horrible. This is no way it came from you. In 17 plus years of doing dream interpretation, I've never found one, not one single example. And so that's the idea of the age-old lie, is creating doubt. The idea of a silver box, first of all, silver, I think of 30 pieces of silver. It represents betrayal, right? And so the tiny little snake is a new lie. It's kind of like a white lie. It's like, but it needs to be trained and fostered as part of an old lie, you know? And so what they're doing right now, it's really interesting, because I didn't see this before until God just dropped this in my spirit. You know what the social media platforms are doing is they're putting fact checkers.
Mhm.
So they've taken now the place of the accusing spirit and the place of Satan himself, and they're saying, did God really say? Is this really true? Check right here. Are this and this, this information is not completely true. This quote is not factually accurate. You can even throw up there a joke on a meme and they'll fact check it for you. No, Abraham Lincoln did not say that you can't trust all sources on the internet. You know, okay, wow, they haven't trained AI yet to be sarcastic, apparently. But so it's the idea of the silver box represents something that's been hidden, particularly hidden in a nefarious manner. If you understand the idea of the silver box, it's absolutely phenomenal. So first of all, there was the alabaster box, right? That Mary brought in, and she broke it and washed the feet of Jesus. And it says in 3 of the Gospels, it says the disciples said, "Why did you do that? This is worth a year's wages. We could have sold it and given it to the poor." And Jesus said, "The poor you will always have with you," which is what Neil had just said. Well, this is interesting because before I studied dreams, I studied biblical economics in detail. In fact, I published 2 books on biblical economics. And so, like I do with dreams, I went and I looked up all kinds of weird, nefarious verses about economics, and this was one of them. And one of the things that I found is in Acts 6, and I think it's in Acts 8 or 10, when it talks about the early church, it says exactly this: and there were no poor among them. I'm like, what? I thought Jesus said you always have the among you. Like, that's exactly the opposite of what he said. And I'm like, well, the Bible says that God is not a man that he should lie. So here's what I believe. I believe that God cannot be proven to lie either directly or in inference. Now, he directly stated, you will always have the poor among you. And it says in the early, and there were no poor among them. I'm like, okay, there's something I don't understand. Well, notice I said in 3 of the 4 Gospels. And then I found in one gospel, it said something different. It didn't say the disciples said, "Why did you do this? This was a year's worth of wages." It says one disciple said it, and it names the disciple. And the disciple happened to be the treasurer, the guy who thought about money, the guy who sold out for 30 pieces of silver, Judas himself. And as we know, there was no more poor among them, but Judas was not in their company because Judas was in the potter's field where he went and bought and hung himself, right? And so there was no poor among you. And actually, Jesus wasn't speaking to Judas. He was speaking to the spirit behind Judas. Just like when he looked at Peter and he said, "Get behind me, Satan." He wasn't talking to Peter. He was talking to the spirit behind him. What's the spirit behind Judas? It's a dual sister spirit. It's the spirit of greed or the spirit of mammon and the spirit of poverty. And they work together because the whole idea of economics means the study of lack. That's what economics means. So when you go to write a book on the biblical study of lack, you have a worldview problem. Because do we believe what a lot of the elites believe, that the earth can only hold 700 million people and we got to kill everybody else if we're going to sustain life on planet Earth and move on? That was actually a lie that came out at the late 1800s, early 1900s. You know, and so the idea of a new lie is it's just repackaged, particularly for a purpose. And the purpose is betrayal. And the purpose is also economic betrayal. Why? Because of the story that I just told you. The silver box represents a joining of the 2 ideas of the spirit behind Judas, who sold out for 30 pieces of silver, and the spirit behind Mary, who knew that she would pour out with extravagance this expensive perfume on the feet of her Savior, which was the alabaster box. So the silver box with the lie inside is the lie that's hidden in an economic type of manner. In fact, there's actually a dream that we're working on that was put out by a national prophetic person, and that we believe exposes a colossal economic lie that they're going to try to put over on us. And it exposes the plan of the enemy. And again, it's the same thing. It goes back to, did God really say? But the thing that's dangerous about this lie is it's going to have the appearance of a. In fact, most people would think if what happens in this dream happens and it comes true, they're going to think this is the best day ever. It's going to be like the end of the Civil War and the end of the Revolutionary War. We have our country back. The republic is secure. Everything is done. But there's an economic lie, a tiny little one that's put into the root of this entire plan. And if that isn't uprooted too, it's game over and they won, even though it looks like we did. So God is showing you two things. He's showing what's happening, particularly on a global stage and in current events. But he's also showing you, I believe that there may be an application in your own life where God is saying, don't be surprised by the new packaging of an old lie. They want to take the little snake out and get him familiar with the old serpent so they can repackage it and say, well, this is completely different than old communism. This is government subsidies, or this is the government's job to take care of you, or this is, what do they call it? They call it economic equality. No, it's not economic equality. Economic equality is go work for the money that he who does not work does not eat. That's economic equality, but no, that's not what they're talking about. And then they try to justify it with the Bible because they talk about the early church. And there were no poor among them. Why? Because they voluntarily, the wealthy gave of the lands that they have, they sold it, they used that money to give particularly to those that lacked or had need. But they didn't do it at the point of a gun. They didn't do it at the point of the IRS, and they didn't do it at the point of a hit squad or the threat of jail. They did it freely because God moved them and he moved their hearts. And so, see, it seems close, and a lot of young people, frankly, some old people in this generation are really deceived to say that a system of economic equality is completely different from socialism and communism. It, however, is not. It's been completely repackaged in a nice, new, shiny little silver box to say, oh, this is brand new.
Real good.
The very last thing that you said, Jim, was something about and something more sinister was either hovering over or watching over them. What was the word you said?
I said there was some more powerful entity that was overwatching. I didn't see this being.
You just felt it there.
Yeah, but you just knew that there was this something looking from probably behind me and just overwatching the whole scene.
Yeah, I think that's this is kind of the next layer that John was talking about. Even though you've identified the two things that are really problematic, the big serpent on the table and the little one that's trying to get close to him, kind of get familiar, kind of get its DNA and its modus of the way it operates without disturbing it. So the little one can't disturb the big one because they would be in competition with each other if they did. The thing that's hovering over them is the principality that covers all of them. And, that is the more sinister one. That is really the power that you need to focus on. This stuff on the table, that's the close in, that's the closest, most dangerous. But the real problem is what's hovering over your shoulder. Because that one is the one that controls the two on the table. And the lady, for that matter.
It's the force behind it all.
Yeah.
And the force behind it all is bigger than just a lie. The force behind it all has a bunch of different names. It even has names in Revelation. It has names today. It's had named in the past. It's the classic, the age-old enemy. But the enemy bursts the lie, and then in the form of a serpent is when the whole lie started, did God really say. So it's interesting that you have a big serpent on the table. But it's also trying to repackage something in some sexy, new, shiny little Twitter feed-like thing so people can be like, oh, well, this is truth. Why? Because I saw it on the internet and I heard it on the news. And it absolutely is not truth. In fact, it's the exact same old that we've always heard.
And this dream seems like it's not, obviously it's not specific to me. This is just for everyone. Is that what you?
I feel like this dream definitely has current event geopolitical implications because of a dream that we're working on that we very well this may be one of the very few dreams that our agency does that we actually release publicly, because the dream was initially released publicly and it wasn't completely and fully interpreted. And so there were a lot of people that were kind of nervous about what the dream meant. And we just feel like God may have a fuller level of understanding. The dreamer even stated, hey, no one person has all the pieces. Well, that's part of what we do in the spiritual intelligence services. We bring the pieces together like the Central Intelligence Agency does, brings intelligence together to have a broader look at a piece of information around a particular problem or a topic. And so that's what we're doing with this dream. And we're seeing so much revelation in it that is just absolutely ridiculously mind-blowing. And it goes back to past presidents, and there's just a lot in there. But it has to do with an economic lie, completely repackaged, an old lie that they're trying to resell. And actually what they're doing is they're giving us they're giving us the illusion that they killed the serpent. But there's a new little snake that they've released. It actually would be better probably called a worm, and it's hidden. It's like a Trojan horse, and it's hidden in the victory. And everybody else will celebrate and say, well, it's green. We got everything we wanted, and this happened, and that happened, and that happened, and that happened. But they left the most important piece. They give up all these sacrifice flies. They give up, you can have this, and you can have this, and you can have this, and you can have this. But we're holding on to that, and that's for all the cards. And I feel like it's very, very close to them being on their last leg, is because the enemy and the people that support the work of the enemy are getting so absolute crazy out there, demonically oppressed and manifesting, that it's hard to even look at the way some of these people are acting when they get in the streets, and they get to scream and yell and carry on about how much they want to kill their babies. And I mean, there's nothing but demonic forces behind this. Rational, real people don't act like that. They don't, it's just, I could go on, but you get the picture. But that's just one thing. You look at what's behind a lot of this, you look at who's behind it all, then you get to see who's really up in the high place looking down as they're trying to repackage the old lie into a new one in an economic play that they're about to spring on the lot of us.
All right.